pray that my words may not just be my own words, that we all may be inspired by your Spirit today. In Jesus' name, amen. So imagine some 15 centuries after Jesus had come, at the height of the Counter-Reformation in Europe, at a time when heretics were being chased down, and yet the great heresy, the Lutheran heresy, was still spreading across northern Europe. Imagine somewhere in southern Europe a great auto-da-fe, an act of faith, a rounding up and a trying publicly and a burning of heretics by the Grand Inquisitor, the Cardinal Archbishop, an old and frail man with terrifying steely eyes. Now, after the business of the day, whilst the smoke is still choking the streets from the burning heretics, the crowds are milling about despondent, and amongst them comes a man. And instantly they recognize this man as Jesus. And this man has love flowing from him, and healing flowing from him. And the people part in his presence, and they come to try and touch him, knowing that even touching his garment will give them healing. Eventually the crowds gather and they bring to the front a tiny coffin with a dead child in it. And Jesus reaches out and touches the dead child and brings her back to life. Then, suddenly, a murmuring is heard on the edge of the crowd, and the crowd parts again, and coming towards the central group is the grand old Inquisitor himself, and he has laid aside his glorious red cardinal's robes that he used during the day for judging the heretics, and he is wearing the common monk's habit which he wore for much of his life. He looks and he sees immediately what is going on. He instantly recognizes the man, and then he turns to his acolytes and says, "Arrest him." Later, in a prison cell, the Grand Inquisitor comes to Jesus and accuses him. And he says to him, "So hungry were you for the unconditional chosen love of the human race that you have condemned the human race to misery. You have given them free will and freedom of choice, and nothing is more terrifying or horrifying for a human being to be given choice, to be tormented by his conscience. What did you imagine was going to happen? But we have now had 15 centuries since you were here, and the condition of humanity is more miserable than it ever was when you were on earth." And then he turns to Jesus again, and Jesus is completely silent. Jesus says nothing. Jesus just looks at him with the same compassionate, steady, quiet gaze. And the Grand Inquisitor says, "When that mighty and all-knowing Spirit tempted you in the wilderness, he offered you 3 things, and those 3 things alone could have secured eternal happiness for humanity. You could have gathered humanity back to that state that it enjoyed in the Garden of Eden. You were offered miracle. You were offered to give bread to the people. And you were offered authority. If you had taken these things that was offered to you, humanity would have followed you absolutely, would have worshipped you, and would not have spent the last 15 centuries starving and killing itself." Well, the Grand Inquisitor turned to Jesus and says, "We have improved upon your teaching. We have taken upon ourselves, us leaders, the awful responsibility of telling humanity what must be done, of absolving the sins of humanity, of allowing humanity its weaknesses, of taking that terrible burden from humanity, that burden of conscience which you left it with. We have improved upon your teachings. And for just a few thousand of us leaders who will live our lives in misery, having the knowledge of good and evil, we will have thousands of millions of happy infants who will live their lives satisfied and joyful that that dreadful burden of choice has been taken from them." And I don't fear you, Jesus. I fear you not. You have no right to judge me, because on that final day, I will come before your throne, and I will set against your few thousand elect who make the right choices and love you out of their own choice, the thousands of millions of happy infants who I have gained and we have gained through our authority. And then the Grand Inquisitor looked at Jesus and said, you, above all the heretics, deserve the Inquisitor's fire, and tomorrow you will burn. The Grand Inquisitor then sentenced Jesus to be burned as a heretic the next day. Jesus had not replied, and the Grand Inquisitor was desperate to hear his response. Well, Palm Sunday we see as an indictment of ourselves. We do of all Holy Week, it's all about our failings. We look at Palm Sunday and we look at how the people failed in their hosannas one day and they crucify him the next day. We don't see that the truth of this matter is more about the nature of God and Jesus, not the nature of our own failings. We knew our own failings long before Holy Week and long before Palm Sunday, but what we did not know, that this man Jesus was able to love us as stupid and as cruel as we are.
Amen.
And that Holy Week, yes, it brings to our mind our stupidity and our frailness and our cruelty, but it also brings to our mind the tremendous love of God. Now, the Grand Inquisitor makes some very disturbing points. The Grand Inquisitor rightly suggests that the way of Jesus is not the way of happiness, and the freedom of the human conscience is no blessing leading to happiness, but it is instead a never-ending curse, as the story of Adam and Eve again displays, that it was the knowledge of good and evil which cursed them and threw them out of the garden of bliss. The Inquisitor has sacrificed his soul, for he knows he is damned by every rule that he once obeyed, and he believes he has damned himself to purchase the happiness of humanity, not the godlike nature of humanity, to release them both from doubt and shame, and to allow what they cannot resist, and to absolve them of it, taking that sin upon himself. Yet he is sure of his path, and he says to Christ that he fears him not, and how dare Jesus show his face after such an arbitrary 15 centuries, during which humanity has not been elevated, but has been debased. The Inquisitor tells Jesus that nobody deserves the Inquisition's fire more than he. Then he faces him, awaiting Jesus' reply. Having disburdened his heart, the Inquisitor waits for some time to hear his prisoner speak in his turn. The silence of Jesus weighs upon him. He has seen that his captive has been attentively listening to him all the time, with his eyes fixed penetratingly and softly on the face of his jailer and accuser, and evidently bent upon not replying to him. The old man longs to hear his voice, to hear him reply, better words of bitterness and scorn than Jesus' silence. Suddenly he rises. Jesus rises. Slowly and silently he approaches the Grand Inquisitor. He bends towards him and softly kisses the bloodless 80-year-old lips. That is all the answer. The Grand Inquisitor shudders. There is a convulsive twitch at the corner of his mouth. He goes to the door, opens it, and addressing him says, "Go," he says. "Go and return no more. Do not come again. Never, never." And lets him out into the dark night, and the prisoner vanishes. It may be that love cannot allow us our happy innocence. It may be that love insists upon our growth and stumbling, our misery and disappointment, our discovery and our soul-making. It may be that Jesus, pained by our pain, can still only bend forward and kiss us tenderly. That our reason is no match for his love. Amen.